We are about to go live now. Vimalji, please begin.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Friday evening session, the first one of this year, and a very happy 2025 to everybody. So let's all join together in the universal invocation. O hidden light, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all who feel themselves as one with thee know they are therefore one with every other. So today we continue part 2 of letter number 131 and Ed Parker series letter number 66. The speaker today is NC Krishna ji, and he doesn't need an introduction. So please begin, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, dear brothers and sisters. The last sentence which we have studied in the previous part of this letter was Master saying, our ways are not your ways. So there is little hope for us to choose one in the West. That was the last sentence we considered. He was obviously referring to Mrs. Laura Holloway, who, according to Master, was not adequately prepared to become a person who could assist in transmitting letters, etc., which perhaps AP Sinnet wanted to be done. So that was the last portion of the letter which we considered. And we move to the new portion, part 2. Master is requesting Mr. Sinnet, in fact, requesting ardently. He uses the word pray, that please do not attribute my observations about Mrs. Holloway to HPV. This is what he wants to make it clear. It is independent of HPV's understanding or her way of looking at Mrs. Holloway. So please do not attribute my observations about Mrs. Holloway to HPV. Right, HPV has complained very strongly, in fact, bitterly, to her master, that is Master M, and said everything very openly as to what she felt about the whole matter, about what she felt about Mrs. Holloway, etc., etc. So, but in spite of what Madame Blavatsky had to say, or HPV had to say, as masters call her, it has neither changed the opinion or attitude of his or her master, that is either KH's attitude or Master M's attitude towards you. That means towards AP Sinnet, there's not much of a change, is what Master KH is trying to convey. In spite of what Madame Blavatsky had to say, it has neither changed the opinion or attitude of her master, that is Master M, or mine, meaning KH, about you. Then he says, our attitudes have not changed the least, says the master. Our attitudes have not changed the least, says the master. So her words have not at all affected the way we look at you. That's what he wanted to convey. So they are very independent in their assessment. So masters have their own way of understanding and assessing a particular person, whether he is useful or not useful, or whether he is fit enough to be something more like a chela or anyone like that. So they depend on the words of others. So this is what they wanted to convey, both Master M and Master KH. So this is conveyed by Master KH to Mr. Sinnet through this letter. Not just two of us know, not just two of us, meaning Master M and Master KH know, even Madam Blavatsky knows how important are your services to the Theosophical Society, and your services will be for the welfare of the Theosophical Society is something which we both realize, and also Madam Blavatsky also understands. So this is another aspect of what he wanted to convey. So your services are very important for the welfare of the Theosophical Society is what the masters have felt. And Master says, this is what we firmly believe. And her personal grievances of hers have nothing to do with what we understand you or how we assess you. So her personal grievances of hers expressed by her will not be allowed to stand in the way for your receiving strict and full justice. This is what the assurance he is giving to Master to Sinnet. Though she has expressed her grievances, those grievances will not be allowed to stand in the way for your receiving strict and full justice. And she will not be also prevented from receiving due justice. Just because you have written a letter, you have differed from her, or you have your own way in which you would like to express your opinion about her, that won't also stand in the way of receiving due justice as far as Blavatsky is concerned, HBB is concerned. So from us, both of you, both Madam Blavatsky and Sinnet will receive due justice is what Master is conveying. Her master, meaning Master Moria, and me, that is KH, we have allowed her to say what she wanted to say. And she wanted to say things which she understood about Mrs. Holloway, and we have also directed her, we have also directed HBB as to what she should do, what she should be doing, though she has got certain observations about this. She should do what is also what we have directed. This is what Master is saying. If there is a bit of unpleasantness, this is what the Master is saying. If this is causing a bit of unpleasantness, if there is a bit of unpleasantness you are experiencing, that has been caused due to the method of execution of our orders. If there is a bit of unpleasantness you are experiencing, that has been caused due to the method of execution of our orders. So while executing whatever we had ordered her to do, those acts might have resulted in a bit of unpleasantness to you. This is what Master KH is telling Mr. Sinnet. The way she did it is what caused unpleasantness. And the moments of unpleasant moments is what are the result of her action, the way she executed the orders. This is what Master is suggesting to Mr. Sinnet. Master confirms that we would contact Mrs. Holloway. We contacted. This is what Master is saying. We have contacted Mrs. Holloway in America, and we gave our points of view and impressed on her the need to prepare to write a book with the aid of and assistance of Mohini Chatterjee, or Mohini Mohan Chatterjee. That's the full name of his. And we talked about how she should go about write that book. And we know from the history that Mrs. Laura Holloway collaborated with Mohini Chatterjee, and she wrote a book entitled Man, Fragments of Forgotten History. Man, Fragments of Forgotten History is the book she wrote along with the other co-author, or perhaps one who assisted her in writing the book, Man, Fragments of Forgotten History. And she also wrote some more articles for the Theosophical journals, and she used to sign off using the letters LCL or LCH, says Linton, Mr. Linton, who wrote the guidebook. So she has written couple of, or maybe more than couple of articles to the Theosophical journals, and she would use these initials as a sign of her name, LCL or NCH. And we are told Mrs. Holloway eventually had left the Theosophical Society. She was not continuing with the Theosophical Society. She left. And if one refers to letter number 64 of Barker edition, there are a lot of references to Mrs. Holloway. Mrs. Holloway, in a way, influenced Mr. Sinnet more than in one way to think or opine against most of the members of the London Lodge of the Theosophical Society. So at one stage, Mrs. Holloway was perhaps responsible for Mr. Sinnet to think differently and differ from other members of the London Lodge of the Theosophical Society. So Mr. Sinnet thought, his assessment was that Mrs. Holloway was a great person. He thought a world of her, and she was a bit of a clairvoyant, as we have seen in the part 1. So Master says to Mr. Sinnet, had Mrs. Holloway agreed to stay at Paris as we requested, that means masters have requested her to stay over at Paris and then travel to England along with HPV. If that had happened, the complications which arose later wouldn't have perhaps happened. That's what Master is saying to Mr. Sinnet. So she did not perhaps heed to their request. She moved on her own. So she didn't stay back and did not travel with HPV. So the London Theosophical Society Lodge got divided and members got into 2 groups. AP Sinnet was in charge of that one group, which is called the inner group. Master KH says Mrs. Holloway talked quite in advance about her coming to the house of Mr. Sinnet. So this, he thought, was something which was happening later, and so perhaps this is all due to her clairvoyance, etc., was what Mr. Sinnet was thinking. She was in a way, Master says, she was in a way the cause of your resenting, not being happy with what Mohini or H.P. Blavatsky were actually conveying to you. They were asked to convey certain information to Mr. Sinnet, and whatever they conveyed, he was not quite happy. He was resentful of the ideas which Mohini Chatterjee and Blavatsky conveyed to him as they were told by masters to convey. So he was not quite happy about it. So also, you two were resenting. This is what Master is saying. You two, meaning Sinnet, was resenting, quite unhappy with what we expressed to you. We said something to you in addition to what HPB and Mohini Chatterjee had said. We said something to you. You were also not quite happy with what we said. And we have expressed our personal wishes, which were perhaps not so well taken. Sinnet says, you, meaning Sinnet, even now may not still be quite like what I am saying. You may not like what I'm saying, is what Master is saying to Sinnet. You may not like what I'm saying right now. You did not like what we said in the past. You did not like what HPB and Mohini Chatterjee had said. You are not quite happy with that. Even now, whatever I'm saying, you're not going to be happy, I'm sure. This is what Master is saying. Master said, you are, or AP Sinnet is responsible for not allowing or helping Mrs. Holloway with her growth. This is what Master had to convey succinctly to Mr. Sinnet. He says, you are responsible, Sinnet is responsible for not allowing or helping Mrs. Holloway for her growth, with her growth. She was wanting to travel with the masters. In fact, she has had interactions with the masters. So Mr. Sinnet was quite responsible for not allowing her to grow. You have been responsible unknowingly, unconsciously. You have stood between Mrs. Holloway and her development. This is what Master is telling Mr. Sinnet. And he says, you may not be happy with what I'm observing now, what I'm saying now. This is what Master KH is saying to Mr. Sinnet. And in spite of all this, yet you are the first person to profit thereby. This is what Master is saying. Though you stood in the way, though you did not help her to grow, you still, whatever little profit or little benefit you got it anyway. This is what Master is saying. Master KH says, talking about the ways of the masters, he is talking about the ways of the masters. He is telling Mr. Sinnet, you have not understood the ways and occult methods of the masters. This is what Master KH is telling Mr. Sinnet. You have not understood the ways and occult methods of the masters. So Master says, you insisted on knowing the causes and reasons for everything that was done. Whatever happened, whatever was conveyed, you wanted to know the reason. So this is not the way we work. So you insisted on knowing the causes and reasons for everything that was done. Master says, things that did not suit you, you were more particular of knowing as to why. Normally, I think that's how we behave. So what was not suiting him, he wanted to find out the reasons, definitely. But even otherwise, where he was not personally perhaps involved, he wanted to know why this has to be done this way, why not the other way. So he had his own way of looking at things. So he says, you perhaps do not know our ways and occult methods of the masters. So he insisted on knowing more of everything that was done. Master says, things that did not suit you, you were more particular of knowing why. Master KH says, you even wanted us to explain. Master KH says, you even wanted us to explain as to why you were summoned to Elba Field, why you were requested to come to Elba Field. They were trying to bring Blavatsky and AP Sinnet together and trying to see whether they can discuss and sort out things. So you were even wanting to find out the reason why you were asked to come to Elba Field. You wanted all the reasons to be explained to you. And Master KH says to Sinnet, this is unreasonable from the occult point of view. This is unreasonable from the occult point of view. You need to follow the instructions. No questioning is perhaps the hidden message. And Master says, trust in us is important. Trusting us is important. And you end up not trusting us also is all right with us. Trusting us is important. If you end up not trusting us also is all right with us. This is what the Master is telling Mr. Sinnet. Master KH says to Sinnet, if you wish, don't trust. If you wish, don't trust. Mistrust will only go against you, says AP Sinnet. This is what Master has to talk about, trusting the Master or trusting the person who is trying to help you. Master KH says, the friendly regard he had, meaning Master KH had, for AP Sinnet suffered or got affected after hearing your ultimatum, a letter wherein he had pronounced certain things rather tersely, which is called as ultimatum. Master KH says, the friendly regard that he had, that Sinnet had for AP Sinnet, suffered or got affected after hearing your ultimatum, the letter. You said that either Mrs. Holloway spends time with us at home in our house, or I will leave the London Lodge. This was the ultimatum he gave. Either she be allowed to come and spend her time in our house, AP Sinet's house, or I, meaning AP Sinnet, will leave the London Lodge and let the lodge go the way it can. So he was about to leave the lodge and was not very particular how the lodge will move. Also, AP Sinnet wrote, whether master or no master, whether master or no master is almost what you said, says Master KH to Sinnet. So APA Sinnet also seems to have said, as part of that ultimatum, master or no masters, in any event, I, meaning AP Sinnet, will show and prove that what masters have heard about the affairs of the London Lodge are all false. And masters will not agree or consent for anything hurtful to my pride to be affected. This is what Sinnet was talking about. So Mr. Sinnet was saying that as part of the letter, which was termed as ultimatum by the masters, the master or no masters in any event, I, meaning Sinnet, will show and prove that what masters have heard about the affairs of the London Lodge was all false. And masters will not agree or consent for anything hurtful to my pride. So that won't happen, is what Mr. Sinnet was feeling. And that pride of his, or Sinnet's, must be protected. This is another demand from his side. The pride of Sinnet should be protected. This is what he wanted. In any case, felt Sinnet. So in any case, it cannot take a beating. His pride cannot take a beating, is what Mr. Sinnet was expressing. So he gave importance to his pride. Mr. Sinnet gave importance to his pride or position or the way the Englishman looks at things as very, very important for them. So now Master says to Sinnet that he is treading on dangerous grounds. He is treading on dangerous grounds. Master says to Sinnet that you are treading on dangerous grounds. And he says there are Dukpas who wait on the path of the mountains, the sideways, to lay a trap for aspirants and chelas. So they are always waiting to strike at chelas or aspirants. So Dukpas are full of evil magnetism. This we know, we have read about Dukpas. So Dukpas are all people with evil magnetism. They're ready for any person who has these negative qualities. They're waiting for their prey. Once you get into their fold, once you get into their ways, or once you get into their fold, it will be like falling down from a precipice or a mountain top. And the person who gets attracted to Dukpas will be in for a psychological shock, says the master. The person who gets attracted to Dukpas will be in for a psychological shock. As a result, the trapped traveler on the path will fall to such a low state from where recovery will be very difficult or it is impossible. This is what Master is telling Mr. Sinnet. This method or these attributes which he had, the feeling that masters cannot do anything, masters cannot believe what has happened here, they should talk to me. Maybe that's what he perhaps feels. So Master says to Sinnet that he's treading on dangerous grounds and Dukpas are ready to take over him if he is exhibiting these trends. So he will receive a psychological shock if he goes into the grip of Dukpas, and he will have a heavy fall from a mountain top. So it's very difficult for him to recover his position. It will almost be impossible. Master KH is saying again to Sinnet, beware of pride and egotism. Beware of pride and egotism. This is a caution to Sinnet, but perhaps I feel it's a caution to everybody. Master KH says to Sinnet, beware of pride and egotism, two of the snares or traps. These are two negative traits which will stop one to tread the path, to tread the high path, to attain knowledge and spirituality, meaning to attain wisdom and spirituality. Master KH says, beware of pride and egotism, two of the snares or traps. These are two negative traits which will stop one to tread the high path to attain knowledge or wisdom and spirituality. This is the warning he gave to Mr. Sinnet. Right. Master KH is further saying to Sinnet, if through his behavior of pride and egotism, and if he allows himself to be managed by dukpas, and if they manage to break his armor or shield and gets into his being, if dukpas catch him and hurt him after they seize him, please don't come back to me and complain to me and say, I have not warned you. So he says, please be careful about your egotism and pride. So dukpas can break your armor, ARMOUR, or the shield which you are having, or which you have developed over a period of time with your arduous sadhana, and that will break. If that breaks and they seize you and they hurt you, don't come back and complain, says the master. And he talks about Mrs. Holloway again and says, Holloway was not really wanting to visit your house or your home, and she has truly communicated to you that I, meaning KH, have asked her not to go over to your place. She has conveyed this to you, but you still insisted that she should come to your place. So she was not very interested after I talked to her, but then you insisted, she came. The reasons why I asked her not to go over to your place must be evident to you now. Why I asked her not to go over to your place must be evident to you now. A lot of misinformation or whatever happened in his house, and a lot of people who visited his house, all those things we have read in other letters. Master KH says we have our individuality. Master says we have our individuality, and we are not mere puppets and are not influenced by HPB. He has said in the beginning of this part 2, and is again saying that second time. Master KH says we have our own individuality, and we are not mere puppets and are not influenced by H.P. Blavatsky. We are not forced to do anything contrary to the necessities of karma. If karma forces us to do something, yes, we are bound by the law of karma, but nobody else can force us to do anything which we perhaps don't intend doing. So we are not puppets, we are not influenced by Madame Blavatsky, is what he is conveying. Master says to Sinnet, you, meaning Sinnet, did not realize these facts before penning your letter or your ultimatum. Master is saying to Sinnet, you did not realize all these which I have talked to you about, these facts, before penning your ultimatum or the letter. The ultimatum embarrassed me, meaning KH, quite a bit before my chief. Mahachohan took notice of this, and so he says the ultimatum embarrassed me before my chief, and chief has made a record of the ultimatum, or has taken a strong notice of that, and that would go against you. That would go against you, is what Master Sinnet is saying. He is, after all, trying to become a chela, and Mahachohan is perhaps the authority to suggest, yes, he can be taken. And so your ultimatum, which you have given through that letter, has been noted by my chief, and it is quite embarrassing for me at that point of time. And he has taken a strong notice of your ultimatum, and that notice which he has taken may not go well with you. That's what Master KH is telling Mr. Sinnet. Master KH is further saying that AP Sinnet, somewhere he has said, he has denied and said that he did not aspire to be considered a chela and so did not apply for it. This is a false statement because he was after the masters to accept him as chela. So Master KH is saying that AP Sinnet has denied and said that he did not aspire to be or considered as chela and so did not apply for it. This is a false information which he has given because something like, the sour grape story. So he has not got it. So he said, I never applied it. I never wanted. I was never interested. Is perhaps what he started saying. With this sort of smoky, flameless fire in your heart, this is what Master is saying. With this sort of smoky, flameless fire in your heart, you are not qualified to be even a lay chela. With this sort of smoky, flameless fire in your heart, you are not qualified to be even a lay chela, says the Master. Master KH is vexed. He says, let us drop this subject. Let us not discuss this. So this is what he wrote in that letter. And then he further says, a beautiful sentence, he says, words will not obliterate or wipe off the deeds. Master is telling, this is a very good sentence to be underlined and kept in our hearts. Words will not obliterate or wipe off the deeds. What is done, says the Master. What is done, says the Master. You have done whatever you have done, it's over. So you can't call it back or call those words back. My brother Master M has more authority than me. My brother Master M, who is the guru of Blavatsky, has more authority than me. Master M has written a letter to the inner group. He was part of the inner group of the London Lodge. Master KH is informing Master M has written a letter to the inner circle of the London Lodge. And Master is telling Mr. Sinnet, by going through the letter, you will realize that your honor is saved. By going through that letter which Master M has written to the inner group of the London Lodge, you will realize that your honor is saved. So that's what he was more concerned about, more worried about his pride and all that. So Master is telling, Master M has written a letter, and going through that, you would realize that his honor, that his honor is saved. And he's saying, Master is telling him, but at what price? At what price your honor has been saved? You almost lost all the opportunities to become a chela because the way you wrote a letter, the ultimatum you gave, and the ultimatum got the attention of Mahachohan, all that has taken place. At what price? Now, of course, Master M has written a letter to the inner group saying that you should stay together and all that. So your honor has been saved, but at what price? Please realize by reading the letter, says Master KH. So he's telling Mr. Sinnet, please go through the letter and find out what has happened and what that you have gained. Your honor is saved, but at what price? So this is what Master KH is telling Mr. Sinnet. Then Master KH is saying, my letter, including the one which I wrote to the treasurer of the London Lodge, if I am right, if it is Francis Arundel who was the treasurer of the lodge, Master KH says to Sinnet, my letters, including the one written to the treasurer of the London Lodge, are in a style which I'm used to. I wrote these letters, says the Master KH, addressing the present situation. I wrote the letter exactly to suit the present situation. So I have no time to be philosophical in that. So the London Lodge, this is his complaint. You are very pedestrian perhaps in your letters and all that. That's what he perhaps told Master, these letters are very, very ordinary. So he says, I have no time. I'm only addressing this situation right now, so I cannot be philosophical. So the London Lodge and certain other Western lodges are in a deplorable condition, says the Master. The London Lodge, which is the first lodge which the founders formed, and other Western lodges are in deplorable condition, says the Master. And Master says we need to address the situation and be practical in trying to solve the problems related to the present situation, says the Master. So this is, again, whenever we have a dilemma whether what we do is right or wrong, perhaps what he's suggesting is we need to address the situation. He's telling Sinnet, of course, but then we can also take it for us. We need to address the situation and be practical in trying to solve the problems related to the present situation, says the Masters. We do have problems in our lodges. So what we need to, if we have to look at that, is being practical and not just impose some theory there. So that's perhaps what Master is telling Mr. Sinnet. Some persons, Master is saying, some persons are unjustly, they are making or attacking the President Olcott and Madam Blavatsky and saying they are responsible for the present situation. Master is telling some persons unjustly are making or attacking President Olcott and H.P. Blavatsky and saying they're responsible for the present situation. He's saying with a reason why this is happening. Master says, we know that they both are far from being perfect. He's talking about Olcott and Blavatsky. Master says, we know that they both are far from being perfect. In some respects, they both are imperfect, the opposite of perfect. But let me repeat, at the cost of repetition, and you may not like it, Sinnet may not like it, is what Master is contending. I'm repeating, says Master KH, that both of them are totally unselfish. That's the greatest quality they have. They may not be perfect in everything. They're still perhaps imperfect in certain ways, but both of them are totally unselfish, which quality we masters have not found elsewhere in anyone else. So this quality of unselfishness, this quality masters say we have not found elsewhere in anyone else. So we know what is the qualification for someone to be recognized as a person interested or one who would like to work with the consciousness of Master. So he should be absolutely unselfish. They both are eager, both Olcott and Blavatsky are eager and show readiness for self-sacrifice if that will act, if that act of theirs will work for the good of others. They're eager to show the readiness for self-sacrifice if that sacrifice will work for the good of others. This is another quality of theirs, unselfishness and self-sacrifice. How many number of sins these qualities, that is unselfishness and self-sacrifice, will cover, asked the Master KH. So many things can go under the carpet when these two qualities are there with them. Unselfishness and self-sacrifice. So Master KH is saying, the phrase used by Sinnet very, very interestingly is multitude of sins they have committed. So multitude of sins would get washed away by the qualities, those two qualities they have, which is unselfishness and a spirit of self-sacrifice. This is what Master is telling Mr. Sinnet. It is true, but I say it again. It is true, but I'm saying it again because sometimes you repeat the truth to make it more emphatic, to drive the point home. It is true, but I say it again, says Master KH, only in situation of adversity alone, we discover the real man, says the Master KH. So this is a beautiful sentence again. It is true, but I'm saying it again. Master is saying to Mr. Sinnet, only in situations of adversity alone we discover the real man, says Master KH. So this is the test. One is considered a real man when one boldly accepts one's share of the collective karma of the group in which one works. Not run away from the group and say, I'm not responsible for this, somebody else is responsible for this. Who is doing it? Sinnet is doing it. So one is considered a real man when the man boldly accepts one's share of the collective karma of the group in which one works with. That real man will not allow himself to be angry or resentful. What are the other qualities of the real man? The real man will not allow himself to be angry or resentful and will not blame others or will not paint others black, meaning will not accuse others falsely. So he will not do all these things or call someone as black sheep or show one as the real cause of the whole muddle. He will not point out at others. The real man will not point at others, but he will be part of the blame. He will take the blame along with others. So that's not happening with you, is what perhaps Master KH is telling Mr. Sinnet. Such a real person, Master says, will always be protected, though he has certain shortcomings. Such a real person will be protected, though he has certain shortcomings. Master says, we will assist that person to see that the good in him develops more and more. Such a person is sublimely unselfish, is par excellence, and is unparalleled, says Master. Master says, such real persons sink their personality, that is, forget all about themselves for the sake of the cause or work which lies before them. Such a person will not take into account any discomforts he may face or take note of personal obloquy, meaning persons publicly condemning, criticizing unjustly the acts of theirs or his, the real man's, or insults heaped by the public with no reason. They're not caring for all those things. They bother more about the work. Will not affect the real person. So the unjust criticism or condemnation of their acts or insults heaped on them will not deter them from the action in which they are involved. They forget their personality, they jump into action, and that's the quality of a real person. KH says, I have done with you, meaning I have had enough. I have discussed so much with you. I have finished saying what all I need to say. Normally, this is something which is coming out of a bit of anger. He's saying they're not supposed to get angry, but I'm just saying, I have done with you, meaning I have finished saying what all I need to say. I have nothing more to say, says Master KH. You're intelligent enough to see that I am in a fix. Master says this letter fix is used by the Americans. I'm in a fix. So you're intelligent enough to see that I'm in a fix, meaning a tough situation. I personally cannot do much, says Master KH. The situation in which we find ourselves in is created gradually by all of us, all of you, and also as much by the founders called wretched by Mr. Sinnet. Wretched founders is the name or the phrase used by Mr. Sinnet. This, of course, you will realize when you go through the Master M's letter. Without one of them, that is either Alcott or Blavatsky, we could hardly do anything, meaning we cannot do anything. They are really important to the Theosophical Society. You have not treated HPB well, properly, you have been cruel to her, says Master KH. She will have her day. You will never agree to this. She will have her day. You will never agree to this because you differ with her so much. But what you have done, you too are responsible, is a fact, says the Master. What all I can do, still personally, I will do, says the Master. What all I can do, still personally, I will do. It may not be possible if this situation becomes worse or difficult due to change in your policy and thinking, says Master K. Suppose you take a different attitude, you differ from us and completely change your policy, then it may not be possible for us to do anything. But I will do what all I can do. And this situation becomes worse due to change in your attitude or policy or thinking, maybe it will become difficult for me to do. If one has to receive, this is another beautiful piece. If one has to receive higher instructions, that person has to be a true theosophist in heart and soul. If one has to receive higher instructions, that person has to be a true theosophist in heart and soul. Just by appearing as a theosophist, one doesn't get qualification to receive higher instructions, says Master K.H. Just by appearing as a theosophist, one doesn't get qualification to receive higher instructions, says the Master. So one has to be, to get higher instructions, he should be a true theosophist in heart and soul, is the dictum or the saying of the Master. And then he closes the letter with his blessings, which perhaps have little value to Sinnet. And that's why Master is saying, my poor blessings. So this is the end of this letter. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Meenakshi ji to give the Hindi translation.
नमस्ते सभी को। थैंक यू ब्रदर कृष्णा जी। आज हम क्रोनोलॉजिकल लेटर नंबर 131 का आखिरी पार्ट ले रहे हैं। मास्टर इस पार्ट में कहते हैं कि वास्तव में हमारे और आपके तरीके भिन्न है, इसीलिए पश्चिमी देशों में हमारे लिए कम ही उम्मीद है। वे कहते हैं कि हमने मिसेस हॉलोवे को अमेरिका में पाया। मास्टर सिनेट से कहते हैं कि आपकी सेवाएं सोसाइटी के कल्याण के लिए कितनी महत्वपूर्ण है, यह सिर्फ हम मास्टर्स ही नहीं बल्कि एचपीबी जानती है। एचपीबी की कोई भी व्यक्तिगत शिकायत आपको न्यायपालिका के रास्ते में नहीं आने देगी या उसे न्याय देने से भी नहीं रोकेगी। मैं आपसे प्रार्थना करता हूँ कि उपरोक्त बातों को एचपीबी के प्रभाव के कारण न माने। उन्होंने निस्संदेह आपके मास्टर से खूब शिकायत की है और वैसा खुलेआम कहा है, लेकिन इससे न तो मास्टर एम के विचार बदलते हैं और न ही आपके प्रति रवैये पर कोई असर पड़ता है। उसके मास्टर और मैंने उसे मिसेस हॉलोवे के बारे में जो भी कुछ करना और कहना था वह करने का निर्देश दिया था। जो भी अप्रिय स्थिति उत्पन्न हुई वह हमारे आदेशों के अमल में लाने के कारण हुई। हमने मिसेस हॉलोवे को अमेरिका में पाया। हमने उसे मोहिनी मोहन की सहायता से लिखी पुस्तक के लेखन के लिए तैयार करने के लिए प्रभावित किया। हमारे अनुरोध को मान्य करके यदि मिसेस हॉलोवे पेरिस में और ज्यादा दिन रुकने को राजी होती और एचपीबी के साथ इंग्लैंड आती तो बाद में निर्माण हुई उलझनों को टाला जा सकता था। मिसेस हॉलोवे का आपके घर में आने का असर उन्होंने आपको पहले भी बताया है और एचपीबी मोहन चटर्जी और मिसेस हॉलोवे की बातों पर नाराज होकर आप हमारी इच्छाओं का विरोध कर रहे थे। आप अनजाने में मिसेस हॉलोवे के विकास में अवरोध निर्माण कर रहे थे। ऐसा आपको बताने पर आप अब भी नाराज होंगे, फिर भी आप इससे लाभ पाने वाले पहले व्यक्ति होते। हमारे तौर तरीकों और गुण तरीकों को न समझकर आपने वजह और कारण जानने पर जोर दिया, खासकर ऐसी बातें जिसे जानना आपके लिए उचित नहीं। आपको एल्बरफील्ड आने को क्यों कहा गया, उसके पीछे का कारण आपने विस्तारित रूप से जानना चाहा। यह गुह्य दृष्टिकोण से अविवेकपूर्ण अनुचित था। आप या तो मुझ पर विश्वास रखें या फिर नहीं। और आपने जो चेतावनी दी थी कि या तो मिसेस हॉलोवे 1 हफ्ते या ज्यादा दिन मेरे घर रुके, नहीं तो मैं लंदन लॉज को छोड़ देता हूँ, इससे मेरी मित्रता को ठेस पहुंची। इसका मतलब यह होता है कि भले ही मास्टर्स हो या ना हो, मैं यानी सिनेट लंदन लॉज को दिखाऊंगा कि उन्होंने इस मामले में जो कुछ भी सुना वह झूठ था और मास्टर्स कभी भी मेरे अभिमान को ठेस पहुंचने नहीं देंगे, जिसे किसी भी स्थिति में संभालना होगा। मास्टर कहते हैं, मेरे मित्र, यह खतरे भरे रास्ते पर चलना है। यहाँ हमारे पर्वतों पर खतरनाक मोड़ों पर डुब्बा स्थित है। जिस मार्ग से हमारे चेला अक्सर चलते हैं, उस पर बुरे चुंबकत्व से भारित जाल बिछाए जाते हैं। वे बेखबर चेलाओं का ध्यान आकर्षित करते हैं। यदि उस पर वे कदम रखते हैं, तब राहगीर को जबरदस्त मानसिक आघात होता है, ताकि उसका संतुलन होकर संभलने के पहले ही वह गहरे खाई में गिर जाए। मास्टर सिनेट से कहते हैं कि मित्र, घमंड और अहंकार से बचे, सावधान रहे। यह उन्हें जकड़ने के लिए दो निकृष्टतम फंदे हैं, जो अध्यात्म और आत्मविद्या के उच्च पद पर मार्गक्रमण करने की आकांक्षा रखते हैं। आपने अपने सुरक्षा कवच का एक हिस्सा डुब्बाओं के लिए खोल दिया है। यदि उन्हें इसका पता लगता है और वहां वे आपको क्षति पहुंचाते हैं, तो आप हमसे शिकायत न करें। जैसा कि मिसेस हॉलोवे ने कहा था, वे वास्तव में आपके घर जाना नहीं चाहती थी और मैंने भी कुछ कारणों के लिए मना किया था। आपको यह जानना चाहिए था कि यदि हम कुछ लायक है, सिर्फ सामर्थ्य कठपुतली नहीं, तो हम न ही एचपीबी से प्रभावित होंगे और न ही हमारे आत्म प्रकाश और कर्म के सिद्धांत के विपरीत कुछ भी करने की किसी की धमकी से प्रेरित होंगे। मुझे खेद है कि आपने चेतावनी देने से पहले इन तथ्यों पर सोचा नहीं। इससे मेरे सद्गुरु महाचौहान के सामने मेरी स्थिति बहुत ही शर्मनाक होती है, जिन्होंने आपके लिए अंतिम चेतावनी दी है। चेला के रूप में स्वीकार किए जाने के लिए आपने कभी आवेदन किया, इससे आप इनकार करते हैं। मेरे मित्र, आपके हृदय सुलगने वाली ऐसी भावना से आप एक चेला भी नहीं बन सकते। आगे मास्टर कहते हैं कि यह विषय हम यही छोड़ देते हैं। एक बार जो कर्म किए गए, उनमें शब्दों द्वारा फेर बदल नहीं होती। जो होना था वह हो चुका है। मेरे बंधु मास्टर एम, जिनके पास मुझसे ज्यादा अधिकार है, उन्होंने लंदन लॉज के इनर सर्कल को एक वादे भरा पत्र लिखा है। आपका मान बच गया है। किस कीमत पर, आगे पढ़ने पर आप समझेंगे। आपको मेरे हाल ही के पत्र और नोट्स और लंदन लॉज के ट्रेजरर को लिखित पत्र फिलोसॉफिकल और मेरी सामान्य शैली में नहीं लगते हैं। इसमें मैं शायद ही कुछ कर सकता हूँ। मैंने केवल तात्कालिक मामलों पर लिखा, जैसे कि मैं अब कर रहा हूँ, और फिलोसॉफी के लिए मेरे पास समय नहीं था। लंदन लॉज और थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी की कई पश्चिमी शाखा दयनीय स्थिति में है। तत्वज्ञान का प्रयोग किसी की अधीरता को नियंत्रण में लाने के लिए किया जा सकता है, लेकिन वर्तमान स्थिति से निपटने के लिए कुछ व्यावहारिक योजना जरूरी है। कुछ लोग बहुत ही अनुचित तरीके से कर्नल ओलकॉट और मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की को सद्य परिस्थिति के लिए पूरी तरह से जिम्मेदार ठहराने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। उन दोनों में परिपूर्णता नहीं है, लेकिन कुछ विषयों में परिपूर्ण है। लेकिन उनमें वह है जिसका कहीं भी मिलना दुर्लभ है। वो है संपूर्ण निस्वार्थता और दूसरों की भलाई के लिए आत्म बलिदान की तत्परता। यह दो गुण अन्य कई दोषों को ढक देता है। यह सत्य है, और मैं पुनः कहता हूँ कि विपत्ति में ही सच्चे मनुष्य की पहचान होती है। यह एक सच्चा पुरुषत्व है जब कोई उस ग्रुप के सामूहिक कर्म के अपने हिस्से को निर्भीकता से स्वीकार करता है, जिसके साथ वह कार्य करता है, और किसी के लिए कटुता नहीं रखता, और किसी को सत्य स्थिति के अलावा उनके दोषों को नहीं देखता, या किसी एक को विशेष रूप से मोहरा बनाकर उस पर दोषारोपण नहीं करता। ऐसे सच्चे मनुष्य की हम हमेशा रक्षा करेंगे और उसकी कमियों के बावजूद उसमें जो अच्छाई है और उसे विकसित करने में सहायता करेंगे। ऐसा मनुष्य निस्वार्थी होता है जो स्वयं को अपने उद्देश्यों में डुबो देता है और उस पर अन्यायपूर्ण ढंग से थोपे गए व्यक्तिगत अपमान, निंदा और असुविधाओं पर कोई ध्यान नहीं देता। आगे मास्टर सिनेट से कहते हैं कि जैसा मास्टर एम के पत्र में दर्शाया गया है, वर्तमान स्थिति के धीरे धीरे निर्माण में जितना हाथ अभागे संस्थापकों का है, उतना ही आप सभी का है। फिर भी उनमें से एक के बिना भी आने वाले कई वर्षों में हम शायद ही कुछ कर पाएंगे। बूढ़े एचपीबी के साथ आपका बहुत ही निर्दयी व्यवहार था और अब उसका परिणाम सामने है। आप इस पर पूर्णतः सहमत नहीं होंगे, फिर भी यह तथ्य है। आपके लिए व्यक्तिगत रूप से जो कर सकता हूँ मैं करूंगा, जब तक कि आप अपनी नीति में बदलाव न करके परिस्थिति को और खराब नहीं करते। जिसे उच्च शिक्षा की चाह है, उसे ऊपरी तौर से नहीं बल्कि अपने अंतःकरण से सच्चा थियोसॉफिस्ट होना चाहिए। थैंक यू, नमस्ते।
Thank you so much, Meenakshi ji. So now we open up for any additions or questions.
Yes, madam. Krishna
Yes,
sir. Krishna sir. Master told that Sinnet gave importance to his pride. Why he had pride, even though he was in touch with the masters and kept his pride above masters? What was the reason?
See, he has been introduced to the master, as I've told in the last week, thanks to Madam Blavatsky. So all the things which were there, the typical Englishman that he was with a stiffer upper lip, so he was still continuing with his old traits. So if the pride is there, the contact with the master or the letters which he has received the master, if he has thought about it, what exactly the transformation which should take place within him, maybe he would have let go the pride, but that didn't happen. So he thinks he is eligible to become a chela. He doesn't want Blavatsky to be in between. So he wants direct link between the master and him. So all these things were there, adding up that he is still continuing to be very, very proud Englishman. Yeah, that is the problem. So he never thought that he can be humble, he can forget all this and become a chela. So that was the basic trait he had.
Sir, and one
Sir,
more
I
thing.
have a
Master says, in the situation of adversity alone, we find the real man.
Yeah.
What should we do or not do in adversity situation?
See, the real person knows exactly what to do in that situation. He will not run away from the situation. He will face the problem squarely. He will look into the eyes of the problem. He will try to solve the problem. He will not run away. He will not blame others. He will not think in terms of saying the other person is responsible. I am not responsible. So he will try to solve the problem and face the problem and try to. That's the quality of a real man. So, real man will not run away. He will stay there, face that, and come out successfully. That is the quality of a real man, or the person with a lot of, I would say, guts to face the situation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I have a question, sir. Is the situation that they are facing there still the side effects of the psychical research?
Yes.
The whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is the main. Okay.
Column. Yeah.
Column thing. And also now Anna Kingsford is still the president of the London Lodge. Sinnet could not dislodge her. I think that was also there. So Sinnet right now has a job. Is he working somewhere?
He had gone to London when he was removed from Pioneer. If you remember, Pioneer had asked him to put his papers. So he has gone to London to on a holiday and all that, and he came back. So he didn't perhaps have a job at that point of time when this letter has happened.
So at this time, the biggest issue is only to do with Holloway, and also the fact that he has flippantly said that I don't want to be a chela. So these are the two main
No. I
points.
don't want to be chela. He's a reaction because he's not going to be there anyway. That's what he sees. Okay. He sees the result. But then he wanted to be a chela. That's something which he went on. If you have examined the other letters, he went on saying, how do I become a chela? How do I become a chela? So they give a lot of requirements to become a chela. And so he is supposed to get all that and then become a chela. And he was not ready, and master was saying that your time has not come. So, but now, because it is not coming, he says, I never tried for it. That's perhaps the way he talked to Holloway or whatever. So that matter has been, see, we sometimes think that the masters or the consciousness of the masters will not know what we are saying or what we are feeling or what we are thinking. But they can guess anything which we feel or which we think. So that's how
So,
he perhaps felt. So they got it.
do you have an idea? There is at one point in Sir Olcott, Colonel Olcott's time when he wanted to resign from being the president. Is it around this time or no? It was not now.
No,
Somewhere
not
at that.
now. He was trying to fight this case. In fact, he did a mistake by going to the psychological that society and talk to them in their office, in their thing, and that's perhaps what was not expected of him. So that was also criticized in a way. So he said, I would put my papers if that be the case. So that was during this affair only, this Colomb affair only. He went to their office and talked to them, and perhaps that was not to be done. And he pushed Madame Blavatsky to leave India, and she left on 31st March 1885, I think, if I am right. So she left for London and then went to Europe. She never came back. She never came back.
Also, sir, do you have an idea why they wanted Sinnet to come to that Elber field? What is the reason for that?
Yes. Madame Blavatsky was there already. And if he goes to Elber Field and if they discuss various things, points of view which they have, where they were differing, perhaps they could find solution to their problems or solution to their issues where they differ from each other, with each other.
Like,
So that's perhaps
like
what they wanted to. That didn't happen.
Like,
He was.
what are those points? What differences? I mean, what did Sinnet want
Like
that?
for example, I'll tell you one small example. Like he wants to push Holloway, and he also wants to find out why the letters don't come directly to him and why Blavatsky is there in between as a transmission agent. So all these things were upsetting him quite a bit. So he wanted to see that she's not there and he gets a direct interaction with the master. And he found this lady, and because of a bit of clairvoyance and all that, so he thought she's good enough to be a transmitting agent. So, but that was not to be. They tried her. They tried helping her out, but then she was not good enough. That lady was not good enough.
Yeah, but at this stage, when Sinnet has almost got the entire knowledge that the masters can give, what more do you think Sinnet wants from the masters now?
See, the end, the whole of occultism or the whole of information which they have to give is not over in perhaps those two books which he has published, because there are a lot of other things which are there, the occult powers and so many other things which are there which have not been explained very clearly, or he is not exposed to them. He wanted to know. In fact, those two books have come, but he has not become a chela, right? So he wants to become a chela and wants to grow and wants to develop and wants to evolve. So that was all the idea. But then the qualifications which he had or the traits which he had stopped him from becoming a chela. But they have given all the information to produce those books, thanks to Madame Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky was the person who introduced Mr. Sinnet and Hume to masters. So they should be thankful, but on the other hand, they were finding her to be a stumbling block.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Krishna sir,
Yeah.
what is the takeaway from this letter to present members? That is for us as a gist. So we went through the
more than couple of sentences which I have read. What is the qualifications of a real person, and what it means to be a good theosophist? What all those things are real. In fact, they are the takeaways. In fact, we have that if one has to receive higher instructions, that person has to be a true theosophist in heart and soul. It's not enough if you are appearing as a theosophist. Is that not enough? And if you become a member, you want to perhaps attend all the conferences and conventions and all that, that's not enough. You have to be real theosophist at heart. So that should be taken as perhaps the most important thing. And humble, being not having this pride and egotism, and becoming selfless, unselfishness, and the spirit of self-sacrifice. These are the qualities which a person should have. And perhaps these are all the positive inputs which this letter has given to people like us.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, or we can go to ending? Okay, then we'll end the session. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. And thank you so much, Krishna ji, for answering all the queries. Thank you. Asatoma Satgame, Tamasoma Jyotirgame, Mrityorma Amritam Gam. Om Shanti Shanti. Good night, everybody.